Okay, welcome back everyone. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, miss.
All right, I'm continuing the recorded class. I do hope you had a good lunch. I hope that you did keep away from a screen. I just want to share some additions to our Google Classroom very quickly. So as promised, I included some notes. So I included concise genetic notes. All right, one person is in the lobby. Right, so just for you to get a clearer idea of these terms, what is a gene, what is DNA, chromosome, homologous, allele, dominant, recessive, heterozygous, homozygous, genotype, phenotype. These are terms you want to know because at the beginning of any genetics question, cell anemia come in, they could ask you something pertaining to these terms, or they could simply ask you what is sickle cell anemia. All right. Also like signs and symptoms. You may want to skip these workings and go straight to the sickle cell question. Well, the example I have on this note, that's on page 5. You would see something with sickle cell anemia here. All right, and okay, so we went through those two questions. Now we're going on to the next topic. So make sure you have some kind of caffeine. Make sure you have a cup of tea if you can't drink coffee, something, just when you study, you want to always create a environment that is really, really inviting you to study. And if it is you're feeling sleepy and tired, you have to find ways to combat it. Now, you don't necessarily have to do a full 8 hours like what we are doing today. You could break it up into smaller time frames. So if you could only manage 30 minutes of focus time, you do 30 minutes, take a 15-minute break, come back, do our next 30 minutes, and continue the pattern. Right? However, it works for you. But I'm really, really stressing that cell phone. Take off the TikTok, take off the YouTube, take off the Facebook, Instagram. I didn't say come off, but take it off, because when you set your screen time and see how much time is being wasted on those apps, you're going to sit down and on the day of the exam, you might even question yourself and say, you know, I spent about 5 hours scrolling through TikTok in one day. I could just learn, the Punnett square, how to do the crosses. It will haunt you. All right. So from now till June, make that like a practice. All right. And you'll get it back. You'll be able to go back on your phone. You will have your vacation and whatnot. All right. So let's continue. Any questions? Anybody have any problems so far? Everyone hearing fine?
Yes, miss.
All right. So we're going to the menstrual cycle. I'll make it full screen now. Right. Can everyone see menstrual cycle?
Yes, miss.
All right. So this is a little graph showing up multiple information here. Now the menstrual cycle, I cannot break it down in the slide here. This is once a female reaches, let's say, age 12, when she starts puberty, usually around age 12, sometimes 13, the menstrual cycle begins. This is a 28-day cycle. So every 28 days, the cycle will resume, and it is being controlled by hormones. A hormone is a chemical. It's made up of protein, and it's a chemical messenger in the body that targets an organ to give a effect. So it tells the body what to do, in other words. All right. Now you have 4 hormones that controls the menstrual cycle. Now estrogen is responsible for repairing the uterus lining, which is called the endometrium. Follicle stimulating hormone, which is FSH, causes a primary follicle. A primary follicle is a undeveloped egg. It's an egg that cannot become fertilized. So in the ovary of the female, you have primary follicles. Every month, one primary follicle is mature and developed. I think somebody logging in. Let me see. I do thank those who were, on time. Very punctual. I didn't want to disturb the lecture. All right. Yes, so back to the hormones. You have luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is responsible for causing ovulation. Now, the word ovulation means when the egg has matured, it must leave the ovary. And when that mature egg leaves the ovary, the next phase would be, okay, fertilization happens. If a sperm cell was to meet the egg, fertilization will occur. Now, if there's no fertilization, there's no need for progesterone to maintain the thickness of the uterus lining. If it is fertilization did occur, progesterone levels remain high because the uterus lining must remain thick in order to support a developing embryo. So I want to just bring this little graph here to show you the different things, the different events that takes place. So you have events that take place inside of the ovary itself, which is the egg, a primary follicle maturing, leaving, and then you have the hormones. Now these hormones, these two hormones is what you call the LH and FSH in particular, is being released from the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the gland in the brain that controls other hormones. Now notice you're not seeing estrogen and progesterone in this graph because those two hormones are actually released directly in the ovary. All right, so LH and FSH is released from the brain or the pituitary gland. So you have the beginning phase. It's broken down into, let's say, like really 3 major days, right? We put 0 days, but it always begins at day 1. So day 14 is important, and then, well, the cycle lasts 28 days. So the follicular phase is where you're going to have the primary follicle. Now, remember, I just mentioned each month or every 28 days, you're going to have a primary follicle, which is a baby egg that is going to increase in size and become fertile. So meaning it becomes mature. So a primary follicle will take approximately 14 days to turn into a mature egg that can now become fertilized. So this growing follicle is controlled by FSH. So you will notice the hormone level is high at that time frame. All right, FSH increases, causing the egg to develop. Now, when the egg is developing, it increases in size. You're going to have, meiosis will be in control here, causing the egg to, develop. You're also going to have something what you call a Graafian follicle forming. Eventually, you have your mature egg. Now, that mature egg doesn't remain in the ovary. It has to leave the ovary. All right, so you call that ovulation when the egg releases from the ovary. That is being controlled by LH. So at day 14, LH is exceedingly high, all right, to cause that egg to release. Now we call this the fertile period. Fertile period meaning you have a high chance of becoming pregnant. So you notice it's not directly on day 14. It could be like 2 days before day 14 to 2 days after day 14 as well. That is a little window that if the person has unprotected sex and a sperm cell is able to swim and meet the egg, then fertilization can occur in this period here. After that fertile period, the hormones LH and FSH is going to go down. It's going to decrease. Because no fertilization occurred, well, remember you're going to have that same egg will just, it end up degenerating. After that time, it degenerates. So it can no longer become fertilized. And you are also going to notice now something called the corpus luteum forms in the ovary. The corpus luteum would have been like the yellow part of that egg. So the yellow yolk or the yolk of the egg is the corpus luteum. That is responsible for releasing progesterone. Progesterone is what does maintain the thickness of the uterus lining. So the uterus lining remains thick for after 14 days until when it realizes, okay, no fertilization took place, then the progesterone level is basically go down because there's no need to allow that thickness to be maintained. That means that wall has to break back down, and the female will then experience her, well, what you call the menstruation phase or period phase after day 28. So from day 28, it goes back to this first part here. From day 1 to day 5, you're going to have the uterus lining breaking down. Then estrogen levels will increase, rebuilding back that wall. FSH would have been increasing to cause a new primary follicle to develop. Then when you reach day 40 now, it releases from the ovary. It remains. Now progesterone would have been released afterwards. So let's say about day 16 to maintain the uterus lining. If no fertilization took place, progesterone level slowly declines, and then the wall becomes weaker, and then it breaks down once again. And it constantly repeats until a woman enters menopause. Menopause is when there's no primary follicles that can develop. So there's no more eggs. All right, so she won't have any menstrual cycle. If the person becomes pregnant, well, then the cycle stops for 9 months. Because remember, you need the walls, you need that uterus lining, you need that baby to, grow and develop in the womb or the uterus. And then afterwards, then the menstrual cycle will restart. So it's a lot of hormones, 4 different hormones. You need to know them. You need to know what they are in charge of. All right, so is there any questions on menstrual cycle that you want me to repeat?
No, miss.
No, miss.
Right, sometimes they can bring a graph like this and they ask you to label the hormones. Now, estrogen will be like in the beginning as well. Progesterone is be after day 14. All right, but it is be high, so look out for a high line. All right, so let's go over to the birth control methods, also known as contraceptive methods. So birth control method is a way in which someone can plan their family. Some persons, younger individuals or the younger generation now believe that it's important to have a career, it's important to be financially stable before they start a family. So family planning is something that wasn't really talked about long ago, but is now something that is introduced in health centers. I believe they should do it more in schools, but in health centers, they have family planning classes and so on. But you learn it in biology, you learn it in HSB. Basically, you need to know different birth control methods to prevent unwanted pregnancy. So there are 5 different types of birth control methods, and from which to choose according to one's health, relationship status, lifestyle. So each method is designed for someone's particular lifestyle and so on. Now, the categories of the methods, you have the sterilization methods, which is permanent. When you become sterilized, you're no longer able to have any children. You have long-acting methods. Now, these are reversible, but you can be once you have these methods, It lasts for long. Short-acting methods, these are like emergency methods in case you have a pregnancy scare or these kind of thing. And they ask, if you notice, it's reversible. Barrier methods, well, those barricade or prevent sperm cells from meeting the egg. Then you have your natural rhythm method. Natural could be like no chemical use, nothing to purchase. It's just natural ways. All right. You will also hear the term like chemical methods. That would be like when you're taking some kind of pill, patch, shot, rings. The short-acting methods are examples of hormonal or chemical methods. So that's also a category name. And sometimes for sterilization methods, sometimes they mention surgical methods instead. So surgical is sterilization. So the two sterilization methods, which is 100% effective, is the tubal ligation, which is done in females, cutting and tying of the fallopian tube. The egg is released, well, when ovulation takes place, there's no entryway. The sperm cannot jump across. There's no way that fertilization can ever take place. Male vasectomy, well, this is when you cut and tie the sperm duct or the vas deferens tube. This is a tube that carries sperm cells out of the testes. So yes, sperm cells will still be formed, but there's no way it can be released. It cannot be ejaculated. So there's no way of fertilization taking place. The long-acting methods, now this involves hormones, the IUD, which is intrauterine device. It looks like a little T-shape. This is something that is inserted in the uterus by a doctor. So these two arms, basically, it is placed like right in the uterus here. So it's like a barrier method, and it also prevents any kind of implantation. So implantation meaning if there was a fertilization taking place, there's no way an embryo could implant itself on the wall because it kind of blocks it. This lasts for about 5 to 10 years, and then it could be removed. Well, there's implants. There's all kind of different methods. Now, these are controlled by hormones as well, synthetic or artificial hormones. The pills are purely hormones. So when I say hormones, it is actually cause these hormones, like for instance, estrogen levels to decrease. If you're decreasing estrogen, then the uterus lining cannot repair. So there's no way a developing embryo could become attached to an unrepaired uterus lining. It also stops luteinizing hormone from being released in the body. And if this hormone isn't released, then no egg can be released. So it controls these hormones in a way to prevent ovulation and prevent the sperm from meeting the egg. All right, likewise, the patch, the shot, ring, barrier method. Well, this would be like condom, diaphragm, sponge, cervical caps. So it just barricades, prevents semen from being deposited in the vagina, or altogether prevents sperm cells from even meeting the egg. The natural methods are not 100% effective, like for instance, the withdrawal method and the rhythm method. The rhythm method is when you time that, like, okay, you see how this is the fertile period. The fertile period, rhythm method is not having unprotected sex during this time. But there are a lot of persons that have irregular cycles, and this might not apply for everyone. You can't really tell the fertile period. It's very hard to determine that. So it's not 100% effective. All right. So you notice it have the ones that are it's a range. So you have most effective in this area, least effective in this side here. Right. So obviously the permanent sterilization method is the most effective method. Abstinence as well is 100% effective. Abstinence is not having any sex whatsoever. So it's actually regarded as a birth control method. All right, so let's jump to the STIs. Now, the STIs stands for sexually transmitted infections. Infections are easier to cure and easier to control rather than a STD. A sexually transmitted disease means that the infection spread in multiple areas of the body and it actually became a disease. So there's no cure. There is medication you could take to kind of subdue the signs and symptoms, but they can't get rid of the disease. All right, so an infection is when a bacteria, virus, or parasite attacks the body before it becomes a disease. So it comes before a disease, in other words. It starts off as an infection and then it turns to a disease. But once you are able to identify you have a STI, you could stop it from becoming a disease. Okay, and while an infection may result in zero symptoms, a disease usually always comes with clear signs. So when it becomes a disease, that's when you start to get the signs and symptoms. Infections tend to result in zero symptoms. So here are some types of STIs. You have the gonorrhea, you have genital herpes, you have syphilis. Now herpes is actually a disease as regarded as a disease too. So these two, gonorrhea and syphilis, is two types that you could cure if you're able to identify it early. Not really this herpes one. This herpes one is very hard. Now, what you should also take into consideration is gonorrhea is caused by a bacteria. Herpes is caused by a virus. So you need to know what's the disease-causing agent, in other words. Syphilis is caused by a bacteria. Now, the ones that are caused by a bacteria in particular, the reason why it's easier to get rid of is because you have antibiotics. Antibiotics is a drug that is used to kill bacteria. So I'll just put something with antibiotics. Now, for virus, it's very hard to make a drug to kill a virus because virus is something, just like COVID-19, they always have new strains. So to get a particular drug to kill it, it's difficult because their bodies tend to mutate and change and evolve very frequently. All right, so you can't have a one drug to get rid of that. That is why they have vaccines instead for those. So that's basically all the topics that CXC sent. That is for your broad topics, right? Now your paper one, you had to learn all the topics. So that covered all 8. We have to go on now to the paper ones. But before I do that, let me see if you all have any questions. Anything to do with STIs, any problems with birth control methods?
No, miss.
Miss,
Right.
which one is the best method? Is it
Which one is the
best method?
The best method is the sterilization method and abstinence.
Okay.
Now, like I said, it depends on the person's lifestyle. If it's somebody who wants to have kids one day, then it won't be sterilization method because it's permanent. So you have to choose something that is second best but reversible. So you have to choose something like the IUD if you intend to have children. All right, and also it depends on the person's finances too. Well, for biology, they don't even ask about those social kind of problems. They don't bring social aspects into it too much. That's more for HSB. They could ask like what's a permanent method and describe how it is done. So you had to describe that they cut in the fallopian tube and tying it. They could ask you how the IUD does work. All right, how the pills work. You mentioned that it is controlled. You can mention that it is decrease the estrogen level or the luteinizing hormone. Those things you just have to learn for bio. So let's get some past papers. I did include some miscellaneous topics for your paper one revision. Things that you probably learned a while back and you kind of forget, like the sampling methods with quadrats, line transects, the different methods to collect organisms, the energy flow in the ecosystem, difficulties encountered with recycling. Now, you could give this a read because remember this will fall under the conservation of the environment part, right? Remember the 3 R's: recycle, reuse, reduce. Have a little something with population size. These are things people turn a blind eye to. You have, well, the difference between anaerobic and aerobic respiration, the formula, right? You have food tests. Food tests come in multiple choice. They could ask you color change and those kind of things, chemicals. The animal kingdom, I barely see this counts, but normally they could ask you like how do you differentiate an insect, where you had to look at the number of legs, if it have wings, those kind of features. Plant kingdom, they barely bring stuff with that. Well, it have a little about what is a dicotyledon, monocotyledon. The plant minerals, I'll definitely advise you to read through, since it have something to do with plants in the beginning part of your paper, right? And they also brought photosynthesis. You should know what's nitrogen, what it's responsible for. People tend to mix them up. Like nitrogen is to form chlorophyll. It helps with photosynthesis. It builds up protein. These are the functions or the effects. If the plant is lacking nitrogen, these are some signs of deficiency. So it turns yellow, it have weak leaves. Phosphorus. Phosphorus is for develop strong, healthy root system, absorb food and water from soil, develop fruits and flowers, right? So these are things you need to just know what they are for. Well, nitrogen cycle could come in paper one, carbon cycle. Digestive system, remember they say heterotrophic nutrition come in, so digestion is something that could have a little part. So they could probably ask you about the enzymes or something with the organs. So you could give this a read. All right, so this is genetic engineering. Now you could bypass, this is previous topics that came. So in the 2021 paper, these were the topics that came, right? This was the Jan 2021 paper. Photosynthesis came, now many people will say that if it is photosynthesis came last year, it didn't come in this year, but it come in. CXC say it come in, right? This was the Jan 2020 topics, the 2019, right? So that is basically, this is a guide for you to use. All right, I will actually give you the PowerPoint version. So if you want to add in, like if you want to, like for instance, if you want to expand on the digestive system, you could always come here, click new slide, probably insert however you want it. You could have like digestive enzymes, just like if you want to recall what you remember. So for instance, you have salivary amylase. This is used to break down starch into maltose, right? Then you have pepsin. This is for protein into polypeptide, right? So I will leave this for you. This is something you could work on. Right. So now we want to practice some questions pertaining to the STIs and contraceptives. So let's go back to the guide now. Now I hope everyone joined here to get the necessary notes. I see 11 students, so I'm pretty sure someone forgot to log in, right? If you need the class code, you could always message me. All right, let's go to scheme of work.
I must have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This is pertaining off topic, right? The
Mm-hmm.
relationship that the fishes eat the run flesh off of a shark, right? What relationship would that be?
That is predator prey. There's a multiple choice you're talking about.
Yes, miss.
Yeah, I know the question. That is predator prey. We will go through a multiple choice shortly. All right, so we go into a disease question. Let's open up this one. John. Or menstrual cycle first. I think menstrual cycle is something that we need to practice. So we have June 2015 question 3. All right, so I've seen something on the female reproductive system. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for all right, now I will show you a little way to kind of find if you're looking for a particular topic in your past paper. You could press Control F and type in menstrual cycle, and this could kind of pull out questions. Now, sometimes it does take a while if it's a big booklet. Sometimes you have to like scroll through. Okay, so I found something here. This paper is Jan 2007, an old paper. So I'll take it out. Right, can you all see question 3?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
All right, let's go through this one just to get a practice on menstrual cycle. Okay, so figure 3 shows the menstrual cycle in a human female. Part A, part 1. Now look at the graph. They give you a graph. They have thickness of uterine wall. So they're giving you one piece of information, just the thickness of the uterus lining. Right? And then they have the time in days. So they have up to 28 days. A, part 1. Using the numbers 1 to 4, label figure 3 to indicate where in the menstrual cycle each of the following events occur. So these are the labels. Uterus wall builds up as estrogen level rises. So that is 1. So you have to find a place in this time frame where you're going to place 1. B, many blood vessels develop. 2, shedding of uterine wall. 3, uterine wall prepared for implantation. 4. Right, so read it over. Look at the timeline here, the time and days, and draw this All right, so I had to reconnect there. It was given some internet drop or some technical problem. All right, how many people still working on that graph question? I'm going to bring back up that screen.
Pardon, miss?
I'm bringing back up the screen, okay? Give me 1 second.
Okay, miss.
All right, so you should be able to see the graph again. Right, could you all see and hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
miss.
miss.
Okay, so tell me what day you put in uterus wall builds up as estrogen level rises.
Yes,
It's
between the 7 and 14. Right in the middle there.
Right. Now you see, you have to look at this line, this thickness. Now you notice from 1 to 7, the thickness gradually decreased. It went down. That means that was the period. That is the menstruation, yes. So when the wall have to build up, you're not going to go directly at 7. You're going right after 7. So let's say about day 8, you're going to put number 1. That is when the walls becoming, it's getting thicker gradually, so it's rebuilding itself. Estrogen level is high there. So you don't want to put it at 14. You want to put it at day 8. All right. Next, many blood vessels develop. What day?
I say about the 14.
Well, when you look at the thickness here,
21.
compared to over here, the line is still low. You have to look at where is the highest point in that line.
How about 21?
So approximately 21. All right. So it's not like you're going to have wrong answers if you put up to day 20 or let me say about, you know, 22. You could get away there. This is the kind of questions you will have multiple answers. So I would put it at, I'll put that number 2 by day 21 there because that is the highest point at as the wall. So that means the walls got thicker because the blood vessels developed. The blood vessels become enriched with blood. Um, Part C, shedding of the uterine wall.
D5, miss.
Right, so you see in this window here at the beginning, you're seeing the wall decrease, the thickness decrease. So you go at day 5, and that will be the shedding of the uterine wall. And you won't get it wrong if you put day 3, because remember it's periods. It's when I say periods, it's a particular set of days that the shedding of the uterine wall will occur. Some women it takes about 7 days, some women 5 days, some women 3 days. So if you put it day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, then no problem. And then uterine wall prepared for implantation. Which one?
Yes, I wasn't too sure about this one, so I put D1.
Now, if it's day 1, that is the first day of the period, of menstruation. Think about it. Now, when the wall is prepared for implantation, that means fertilization did occur. So the sperm did fertilize the egg at day 14, and now a zygote, which is a ball of cells, form, and then you reach the embryo stage where it have to implant. So it's not going to be where this line is coming back down. It is going to be where the wall is also thick. So you want to choose somewhere between 21 and 28. So somewhere that is high, like let's say about 25, 23, 24, around there. The wall is thick. There's many blood vessels there, and it's ready to implant itself on that uterus lining. So that is where you'll put number 4.
Okay,
All right. So this is an example of how they bring menstrual cycle. Then they ask in here some questions here. All right, so let me call somebody to read. All right, some people line here and from Maya, part 2.
Identify 2 hormones involved in the menstrual cycle and give the function of any one.
All right, which do you remember? So it's so important to go through this slide. So if you're talking about estrogen, estrogen is responsible for repairing the uterus lining. Right after the period, the uterus lining have to rebuild itself. So that is where estrogen will come in. All right, then you could say follicle stimulating hormone. This causes a primary follicle to grow and develop and become mature or fertile. So that will take approximately, now while that wall is regenerating, while that after the menstruation, when the wall is repairing itself, our egg is already maturing. The egg is even maturing during menstruation. So while the woman is menstruating, a primary follicle don't start to activate and grow in size and these things. And it will take 14 days. All right. Last part here, let me see. Okay, it have some birth control in the end there. Okay. Somebody else. Let me hear from Ambika, part B.
Part B.
Yeah.
State 3 functions of the placenta during development of the fetus. Provide nutrients to the fetus. Allow the fetus to transfer waste and to provide food for the fetus.
When nutrients is food. What else the mother does have to provide for the baby?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, and you could also say antibodies. All right. Okay, so this is pertaining to the birth control method now. Let me hear from Wilson, part C, part 1.
Okay, miss. It has.
Read the question aloud.
Oh, yeah, sorry. State 3 will control methods practiced by human beings. Yes, it has the short-lasting method, the long-lasting method, and the barrier method.
Don't give the category name. Give the actual method name. So yeah, they say like condom. For these kind of things, don't give category names. You want to actually give a method, right?
Okay, miss. Well, and it
Right.
have condom, miss, rings,
Mm-hmm.
and pills, miss.
Very good. Now, if they come and say state 3 birth control methods practiced by males. Now, remember they say human beings here, so you can talk about anything there. If they say male now, what are you going to say? Anybody?
I would have said a condom, well, the new contraceptive pill that is being created now. I'm not too sure if that'll be an answer for this year, right? And mm, I just see sterilization, surgical sterilization.
All right, now it had two sterilization method. The male one, you want to make sure and say is the male one, which is vasectomy.
Vasectomy.
Male vasectomy.
And
You will
one
run
is
into problems.
revocation.
That is for female. Tubal ligation is for female, right? Now, if people say in the male pill, remember that is something that in research is not something you could go in a pharmacy and purchase. It's not in the market. So you need to choose examples that are relevant and available, because at the end of the day, it is CXC, which is a Caribbean exam that is making your exam. So they're not going to include something that do exist. I'll just show you something with just to show you, right? They have what you call a marking scheme. And not much people is have these kind of things. They follow a strict marking scheme. Any kind of outdoor kind of answers that not pertaining to the marking scheme, they do give you a marker. So something you probably hear something Caribbean make, like the male pill. If that not in the marking scheme, that will not, they're not going to give it correct. The only things that fall in the marking scheme is what they give correct. Now, it don't have to be in the same words. Like, let me show you something. Like, let me say you had let me see. Let's say you had to label the diagram of a heart. This was a 2019 paper. They will give the labels that you need to have, and it have to be in correct position. And if you notice, they have like, okay, if you have any 4 to 6 correct, you get 2 marks, any 2 to 3, right? So what I'm trying to say is they follow a marking scheme. So always include things that you learn in the syllabus. Like, for instance, you will not have learned implants. So don't go and talk about implants because you probably don't really know much about the implants. Things that you learn in the syllabus is like the condom, diaphragm, pill, IUD, tubal ligation, male vasectomy. All right, so just be a little careful when it comes to those things. And last one. By the way, a third birth control method for males, you could also say withdrawal. Withdrawal means removal of the penis before ejaculation. So that is, well, only males could do that one. For females, you have a number of methods you could talk about. All right, part 2. Oh, quiet. Let me hear from Michaela.
Suggests why birth control seems more important in humans than in other populations of mammals. It's more important for humans to practice birth control because many prefer to have children at a later age to advance in their careers. So it's more important for them.
That's valid. Yeah. Right? So you always think before you start to write answers, always think and form your sentence first. Simple sentences. So this is suggest why birth control seems more important in humans. It seems more important in humans because humans need to plan a family. They need to be able to have the required amount of resource to raise the family, whether it be financial, emotional. The parents need to be able to provide emotional support to each member. So if they have a large family, they may not be able to do so. So you always practice coming up with your answer in your head first before you start to lay it out in the paper. All right. Animals, on the other hand, or other population of mammals, remember their purpose. They always have to survive. They have to always be continuing their species in the wild because in the wild they are susceptible to disease, predator prey, a lot of dangers in the environment because they live in the wild. So that is why they don't, it's not like you could give them birth control. They always have to reproduce because their survival rate is much less than a human. Humans, however, because their survival rate is great, you could have overpopulation in the human population. So that is why you need to have birth control methods because not everyone is capable of having large family size and able to manage them. All right, so you always have to look at the amount of resources that you have before you start having children or offsprings. You want to always have enough to support them. So that is why it's important in humans rather than populations of mammals. So they could always bring some kind of out of the way question like that. Have you thinking, eh? Not everything is from the notes and not everything from textbooks. You always have that one question that you have to think about. So be prepared. Okay, so let's jump into our paper one practice. I want to bring the most recent paper. Yes, we have a question.
The PowerPoint presentation not on the Google Classroom anymore.
Yes, I removed it because I had some little errors to fix and I'm going to upload it. Thanks for telling me. I will upload it. All right. Now everybody have access to my paper one folder.
Yes, miss.
You're going to go to the June 2021. I want you all to have answers for that one. Now, what I've noticed, June 2021, 2020, 2019, Jan 2021, Jan 2020, right? Those papers that follow, they tend to have a lot of repeats coming down to the last 5 years. And those last 5 years, they did come up with some new questions. So I'm giving you, now I have to give you, you have to work within a kind of time frame here. We're working with time as well. You go into this paper, May, June 2021. I'll give you about, let's say about 30 to 45 minutes to complete it, and we'll go through the answers.
Okay, miss.
Can you all do that?
Yes, miss.
All right then. So at 1:30, so I'll start correcting. All right, so I'm just checking in. How many people completed? Or how many people still working? You can tell me in the chat.
Yes, miss. I'm finished.
Okay.
I still going, miss.
What number you reach?
42, miss.
We could get like 5 more minutes. I have like 5 more
All right.
questions.
5 more minutes.
Okay, miss.
Okay, I'll finish.
All right, so we'll begin in a bit. Basically, is this the first time you all doing this paper or you all did it already?
First time, miss.
This time.
All right, so people who registered early, remember you would have had access to the drive. All right, you don't need to wait for me. You could go ahead and do past papers and do whatever year you want. I will be providing answer sheets, but I want to see what answers you all came up with first. All right, so each person will get a chance to read a question and give their answer. I'll go with accordance to the list. All right, so let's start with number 1. Alex.
Yeah, miss.
Right, number 1. You seeing the questions?
No, miss.
Can everyone see my screen?
Let's see.
Yes.
I do things. Well, then I check my notes.
What you all seeing?
Question, people.
Question, right, Alex, you just have to read the question and give your answer. That is what he was working on. Okay, let's jump to someone else. Let's go to Ambika.
Which of the following features is used to classify a group of organisms as class and sector? D.
Number of segments. So remember, for insect, you have the head, thorax, and abdomen. They basically have 3 segments. All right? Head, thorax, abdomen. Number 2, Anushka.
Which of the following options directly defines a niche and a habitat? A.
Excellent. A, the role that an organism plays in the habitat. That's niche. Habitat, the place where an organism lives. Number 3, Bruce.
Miss, read out the question first, so answer, miss.
Read the question. I want it sticking in all your head.
Okay, miss. Living organisms, such as plants, are affected by aerobic factors which determine where they are established. They become established. Which of the following options listed list some of the determined factors? Miss, I put B.
B is correct. Sunlight, abiotic is the non-living factors. So sunlight availability, soil pH, and the minerals, right? Those are non-living. Number 3, Jaden.
Number 4, miss.
Sorry, 4.
Which of the following organisms are most important in biodistribution? I put A, bacteria.
Bacteria is important, most important, because they actually return the minerals or the nutrients back to the environment. They actually prevent the accumulation of waste as well. All right, next one, number 5. Jazera.
If a farmer noticed pink mealybugs in his garden, he is advised to introduce the ladybug beetles to control the mealybugs. The type of relationship between the mealybugs and the ladybug beetle is described as, I put A.
Okay, so symbiosis. This is symbiosis. Now remember, if it is he introducing the ladybird beetle to control mealybug, that means ladybird is going to kill and eat the mealybug. So there's a predator-prey relationship. A lot of people, when they read mealybugs, they automatically just jump to parasitism because mealybugs is something that is destroy a garden. It's a tiny red, tiny bug that feeds on leaves. But no, they want to know what is the relationship between the bug and the ladybird, not the mealybug and the garden, you know. The ladybird and the mealybug. That is the predator prey. B. Number 6. Kyle. Like I didn't hear nothing he said. All right, we're getting some static, so I'll go through. Which of the following statements about the recycling manufactured materials are true? 1. Less energy is used in the manufacturing of new products by using the raw materials from recycled products. 2. Some manufactured products can be recycled. 3. Recycling of some non-biodegradable material prevents landfill sites from filling up too quickly and for a long time. What answer you all had?
I had B, miss.
I hear B, 1 and 3.
No, I said D, as in
I said
dog.
all.
D. D for dog, yes. All of those are true. Right? This is something that is repeat. All right, number 7. Maya?
Approximately 10% of the energy stored in food is available to the next organism in a food chain because must I had D.
Okay, now remember 10% of energy is passed from one trophic level to the next. 90% of energy is either used up and some of it is lost as heat during the process of respiration. Heat is evolved, right? And that is energy being lost. So that answer is supposed to be A. Look out for it. All right. Number 8, Michaela.
Which of the following materials is considered to be non-biodegradable? B. Sardine can.
Very good. B, because it is made out of tin. Tin is non-biodegradable.
Miss, what was the answer for the first 2 questions?
Number 1 and 2. Number
D
1
and
was
E.
correct. D and E.
Okay, miss, thanks.
All right. So we on to number 9. Nandika.
Replanting trees on a bare hillside is an example of C. Reforestation and restoration.
Reforestation and restoration. Okay. C. Reforestation and restoration. Now, when you're replanting trees, they're reforestation. Right? So you're planting over trees. Now, when they say a bare hillside, that means when they replant the trees, they're restoring that environment. They're restoring that biodiversity back into the hillside. Because it was bare before and they replanted the tree, they restore that area. When you hear preservation, to preserve something is something that is damaged or something that is being destroyed. You try to kind of ensure that that damaged object can last for a longer period. So you preserve it. You have methods where you kind of try to make it longer lasting, paint it over. If you have to put it under, prevent it from getting damaged from the weather. Conservation is when something is being used up, you try to limit the usage. So you're trying to save on it. Conserve means to save. All right, so those are some terms that people mix up sometimes. Number 10, we have Naomi.
Yeah. The greatest threat to the survival of coral reefs is C. Wait, no. B.
B, increase ocean temperatures. And this is something, remember when they put greatest. So you have to be very keen. This is something that they change up to. Right? This was a question that repeat, but they change up the wording. So when they say greatest threat, increase dissolved oxygen level. That's not going to be a threat because organisms need oxygen. So if you're increasing oxygen, that is not a threat. Decrease greenhouse gas, that's a good thing. Decrease nitrogen level, well, they don't need nitrogen. They don't use nitrogen as a gas. They use nitrate. But when you increase the ocean temperature, coral reefs cannot live in very hot temperatures. They have an optimum temperature in the water that they will survive at. So the one that have the greatest threat would be increased ocean temperature. B. All right. Next, 11. Rajiv?
Phase 4 of the graph of population growth is most likely due to I had A, competition from invasive species.
Correct. Now, an invasive species is some kind of organism that coming from another country. So it doesn't belong to a particular country, it comes from another area and it invades the current place that it's invading, it is actually compete with the organisms that naturally live there. And in so doing, they can either overcome that population and take over, and that can lead to the death or the decline of the current population, right? Adequate food and space, high natural birth, disease resistant, that is good things. That's something that will encourage a population size to increase. So 11 would have been A. All right, Samara, 12. Samara. All right, we're not hearing. When compared to a cheek cell, a muscle cell contains more. Now, muscle cells are required to undergo movement. A lot of energy is required. So it will be C, mitochondria. Right, 13, back on top. Alex. Alex, we didn't hear from you, eh?
Miss, I wasn't hearing properly for the last time you asked. I hear afterwards. Sorry about it.
Okay.
Which of the label structures is responsible for controlling cellular activities? I had D.
Very good. D is the nucleus. Ambika, 14.
Which of the following options correctly identifies and describes the process occurring above? B.
Very good. So this is something you remember the terms. Concentrated sugar solution, it simply means it have more sugar than water. Dilute sugar solution means it have more water than sugar. And if you notice, when you look at the after, the one that have dilute, the water drop. So that means the movement of water from an area of high to low is meaning it moved from dilute to concentrated by osmosis. Osmosis is what is moving. If it's sugar that moving, what is diffusion? But it's water that moving here. So correct, 14B. 15, Anushka.
Which of the following functions is not correctly matched to the organelle? I had B.
Yes, protein synthesis for chloroplast. Chloroplast, remember that is concerned with making food and making glucose. All right. Next one, 16, Bruce.
The major feature that is responsible for the rigid structure of the let's see how to pronounce that word again, please.
Xylem vessel.
Xylem vessel is Demas.
No, this one is now xylem is made up of lignin, and lignin is a very tough, rigid structure similar to cellulose. So
Should be
lignin,
Emas.
yeah.
Okay, next.
17, Jaden.
17. Which of the following features does not enhance a leaf's ability to absorb solar energy? I put C, presence of a vascular bundle.
Correct. The vascular bundle is the xylem and the phloem, but that has to do with transport, nothing to do with absorbing solar or light energy. 18, sorry, this is always repeat. Jazara,
The food produced is glucose.
glucose. B. 19. Kyle, this is always repeat.
Which of the following statements best accounts for the shape of the graph? I had D.
D. As light intensity increases, there's an increase in photosynthesis until there's no further increase in the rate due to some other limiting factor. What is the other limiting factor in that graph? What other piece of information is showing there?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. Yes.
Very good. The carbon dioxide concentration. All right. Number 20.
Which of the following organisms is a saprophyte? Add A.
Bread mold. Saprophytes feed on decomposing matter. So molds is something that is formed on decomposing bread. You tend to see a kind of greenish kind of color. All right. 21. Next person.
An enzyme is best defined as a molecule which D increases the rate of a chemical reaction but remains unchanged at the end of the reaction.
Remains unchanged. Very good. So it increases and it remains unchanged at the end of the reaction. Very good. 22.
The energy released from the process above is D.
No, this one has to do, okay, now whenever you're releasing, and first to begin, energy is stored in a molecule called ATP. Now, from the diagram, they're saying the energy release. So when energy is released, that means energy is being used. So when it is being used, it is converted to ADP. When energy is being stored, it is converted to ATP. So just remember that that word, energy release converted to ADP, energy stored converted to ATP. Right, so 22 is A. All right. $23.
Okay, so the respiratory structure shown above is that of A.
Very good. Alveolus. Next person. Rajiv.
Which of the following is an effect of carbon monoxide found in cigarette smoke? C. Reduce oxygen transfer by the blood.
Very good. Right, carbon monoxide does bind with the red blood cells, preventing oxygen from being transported. Next person, 25. Well, Samara have audio problem. Okay. Why is it difficult to develop a vaccine for the common cold? Reason being the antigens in the common cold virus change frequently. Every year you have a new strain, every year you have a new vaccine. So it's difficult to develop. And 26, back on top, Alex.
In heart bypass surgery, an artery is advantageous over a vein to bypass the blockage because A. Arteries have thicker, more muscular walls than veins.
26, okay. Now, this one is something you have to think about. An artery is advantageous over a vein to bypass. Arteries have thicker, more muscular. That is true. Arteries have a thick muscular wall. Now, arteries just carry blood away from the heart. So whenever you're doing surgery, you don't want to interfere with blood that is entering the heart. You want to focus on blood. Okay. How many of you have A? You could raise your hand. All right. So this is something I saw repeat, and this was something kind of newish. So yes, arteries have thicker, more muscular walls than veins. Veins tend to have thin walls, but are large lumen. All right.
Miss, I put D.
This one is A. 27, Ambika.
Which of the following options best identifies some of the transport substances in animals? D.
Very key here is animals. Animals do transport. Oh, right. This is the one that have. Now, be very careful. They have the same question, and instead of glucose, they had sucrose. So if it was sucrose, then you just have to choose the option 1 and 2. But glucose is something that is transported in animals. So therefore, you go with all of them, amino acids, hormones, and glucose. Right? So that one would have been D. I saw this one change up to sucrose. All right. Next, 28.
In the transport of solutes in the phloem, the source is defined as any area of the plant where C.
Very good. Sucrose is the leaf. Sucrose is where the source is where the food is made. So where it is made is the leaf, and from the leaf it is loaded to the phloem where it is translocated to other parts of the plant. The sink regions of the plant will be the roots, the stem. You could also say like for fruits, those are sink regions where it have to go and store. 29.
Under which conditions will the rate of transpiration in plants be higher? The highest, sorry. Miss, I put A.
This is high wind speed, not low. High wind. High wind speed will blow off all the water vapor from the leaves. So it's sunny and high wind speed, B. All right, 30. Who's 30?
Jaden, yes.
Oh, which option relates to which option correctly relates to the processes occurring in the parts labeled I, and I. I put B, ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and water conservation.
Where all them I come out from? That's Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3. I only hear I. All right. Okay, so 30 is B. 1 is 1, part 1. That's Roman numerals. Long ago, they used to teach Roman numerals in schools, but they take it off the syllabus. So that cup shape is the Bowman's capsule. You're going to have ultrafiltration or pressure filtration. Part 2 is where you're going to have glucose being reabsorbed, so it's selectively reabsorbing. 3, water is conserved there. So depending on the state of the body, depending if it has a low water content, more water will be reabsorbed back into the blood. So B is the answer. Right, next person, Smith.
The best description of the role of excretion in living organisms is to C. Get rid of toxic waste.
Very good. Kyle, 32.
Which of the following is not a form of excretion in plants? I had A.
Very good. So when they say diffusing in, anything that going into the plant cannot be excretion. Excretion is things that is exiting. right? Some people is going to put C, but water vapor is exiting out of the leaf. Remember transpiration. All right, 33, Maya.
Which of the following correctly describes movement in plants? Add A.
33, growth, movement, and part movement. Remember, part of the plant can move. The shoot can grow, the roots can elongate, right? It can't be whole body. Whole body is animals. That is locomotion. So this one is B. 34, Michaela.
In humans, the skeletal system performs a variety of functions, including A.
Yes, the bones allow red blood cells and white blood cells. It forms in the bone marrow. All right. 35.
Locomotion is important to animals for, I had D.
Now locomotion is the whole body moving from one point to the next. So the whole body, not that doesn't. Reproduction is part movement. So this will be 1 and 2, A. All right, not reproduct. Locomotion is whole body movement. So you pick up yourself and you walk from one point to the next. All right, 36. That will be Naomi.
Oh, sorry. Miss, I had two answers to this. First I said D, and then I said E. I wasn't sure.
So why not the undisturbed tip, undisturbed shoot?
Because I guess like having too much light and having a minimum amount is different.
Which one have
And
minimum?
the foil cap. Wait, no, that would have the more.
That will bounce back. That will reflect the light. Foil is something that will reflect the light, so you're not getting no light. If you remove the tip, that means you remove the auxins. So you're not going to have growth. If you put a transparent cap, well, okay, you're going to have light passing through. Transparent means light can pass through. All right. Now, you need, especially when it's a shoot, you need to have as much light as possible because it's now germinating, now developing. You need to have enough sunlight. So this one would have been C.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. 37.
Which of the following best describes the term stimulus and response? For this, I had the stimulus would be the detectable change in the environment and organism's reaction to the stimulus.
Yes, D is correct. And number 38 now.
Miss, I have a question. Back up to 36, right? I'm seeing tip. Can you explain the tip again?
The tip of the plant is the area where you're going to have the growth hormone, which is, well, in plants it's auxins. Auxins is found at the back of the tip. So when light is absorbed into the tip, the auxin becomes stimulated, which causes the cell to divide by mitosis, which is encourage growth. So if you remove the tip, you remove the auxin.
Okay, so you cut the tip off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then when I say tip remove, they cut it off, yeah.
All right, thanks.
All right, 38, I'll read it. The numbered structures are, now you have to be careful with these lines. So you're seeing one is connected to the skin, one tip is connected to the muscle. Anytime you see something connected to the muscle, that is effector. Muscles or glands is effector. So you're starting from skin of hand. So it's always 2 will be sensory, 3 will be the relay. Relay is situated in the spinal cord. And from the relay, the response is given off by the motor, which is 1. So this one would have been C. All right, back on top.
The
Alex.
role of an effector is to respond to a stimulus, B.
Very good. Respond to stimulus. 40.
Which of the following shows how the defects can be corrected? C.
Now you have to look at the diagram. Where is light? Where did light focus? Where is the light? Okay, seeing light entering the pupil, you're seeing it being refracted more than it should. The light's supposed to land on the retina, but you see where it cross across, when the light rays cross, that is where it forms in the image. That image forms before the retina, where it's supposed to land on the retina there. So as a result, this is what now whenever it lands, when light is being refracted too much, is either the lens too thick or the eyeball itself too short. Now when you notice, this is nearsighted. So to correct nearsight, what kind of lens you need? Concave.
Concave.
And our next name for concave is divergent. It's concave, also known as divergent. But where is it divergent? It can't be outwards, it had to be inwards. All right. So this one is 40B. And 41.
The following statements describe the processes taking place within a seed during germination. Which of the following correctly identifies the sequence of events during the germination of the seed? I had B.
D, right? D for dog.
No, I had B.
Embryo uses food to develop. Now, before the food could be used, the enzyme have to break it down. Enzymes must break down the food. So first, you need to have when I say soluble products moving, they're talking about water entering. So water enters, then the enzyme activates, and then the food is now used for the growth purpose. So respiration could take place. So it's supposed to be, let me see. This one was funny, you know. D is C2. No, this is D for dog. Right? So it's soluble products move into the embryo. Then you have two enzymes break down protein into the amino acids. Soluble products move into the embryo. Embryo uses food to develop the radicle and the plumule. So the enzymes have to break down the food have to move and then cause the radicle and plumule. That food is used up now to develop the radicle and plumule. All right. 42.
Which of the following is an incorrect label for the y-axis? Let's see.
Yes, time is never placed in the y. Time is always always on the x-axis. All right, so anytime you have like a rate, like something to do with how fast something is occurring, you always notice, like for instance, rate of photosynthesis, anything it could be like enzyme reaction. You always have time at the x-axis. You call the x-axis the independent variable. 43. Who's next?
Me, miss, I think. Yeah, item 43 refers to the following activities involved in the menstrual cycle. 1. Repair of the uterine lining. 2. Ovulation. 3. Shedding of the uterine lining. And 4. Development of the Graafian follicle. 43. Which of the following sequences shows the correct order of activities? I put C.
Yeah, C. So you have your development of, remember your primary follicle is turned into a Graafian follicle. That's when the egg is maturing. So this is menstrual cycle. So after that, you're going to have, well, I should say during the development of the Graafian follicle, menstruation is occurring. So yeah, shedding of uterine lining. Then that will repair itself because the new egg now is about to be released. So then it's going to be ovulation, yes. C is the answer there. 43. 44.
Which of the following statements is true for both flowers? I put D for dog.
Yeah, D for dog. And you know something, the same question, I see they put the animal pollinated flower as number 1, and they went and put the wind pollinated flower as number 2. I saw that in one of the questions. All right. 45.
Which of the following shows the correct sequence for seed formation after fertilization? Miss, I had A.
Very good. Ovule. Then is that, so ovule is the female gamete in the flower. When that is fertilized, it turns to the zygote. Now remember, the pollen grain will fertilize the ovule. Then, well, you have the zygote, then the embryo, which is the food storage, and then you have the seed formation. Good. 46, Maya. We lost Maya. All right. Which of the following structures is common to both cells? This is the nucleus. B. 47, Michaela.
Which of the following forms of birth control is most likely to be 100% effective? C.
Tubal ligation, because that's sterilization. All right. 48.
A vector is defined as an organism that C. lives on other organisms.
D. Transmits disease organism. So a vector is a mosquito, rat, bats. They carry viruses, bacteria, right? So they transmit the disease causing organism. All right. 49.
A 60-year-old man has been diagnosed with hypertension as well as diabetes. Which of the following treatments would be most effective in this management of both disease? Exercise and lowering the intake of salt and refined carbohydrates.
Very good. Right, so that one is A. 50 refers to the following. Oh, sorry, Rajiv.
Hello?
50.
Okay. At which stage is this vector easily controlled by the use of aerosol and insecticides? Aerosol, right? So that's in the air. I'll give that D4.
Very good, the adult. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, I'll go through the rest. 51. Which of the following options best describe a chromosome? This one would have been C, nucleic acid that contains all genetic information. B actually sounds good to it. Structure made up of DNA wrapped around histones. That actually is the chromosome too. So let me just check this over. It cannot be two forms of this. Now remember, this one will have the word best. So it will have something that two are close to the answer. Two forms of the same gene. That would be allele. Part of the DNA which carries genetic information to produce a protein. No, that can be chromosome. So it's between B and C. Structure made up of DNA wrapped around histone. Nucleic acid that contains all genetic information. Now chromosome stores all your genes, which is all your genetic information. Which one do you all have for 51?
Let's see.
C, miss.
B.
It makes
No, it can't be D. All right, C. We'll
So and
keep
I
it as
had
C.
B, miss.
No, sir, I said
Yeah,
B as in boy.
B, okay. I could see why it's B because when they say nucleic acid, remember they didn't you have ribonucleic acid, you have deoxyribonucleic acid. So when it is a nucleic acid, that is vague. So you know what? Let us put B for 51. Because DNA is the material that builds the chromosome structure. That is a molecule, not nucleic acid. Nucleic acid is vague. So this one would have been, yeah, B. So be careful with them best describe and on them kind of things is be similar. All right, 52. If a diploid organism has two different alleles for the same gene, it is described as being, so they say two different. Different is heterozygous. This one is E. 53. Which of the following statements about meiosis is not true? Now, meiosis, C, it doubles the number of chromosomes in gametes. It's supposed to be, it is half the number of chromosomes because meiosis is a haploid number of chromosomes. Mitosis is diploid. All right, 54. Tarzan and Jane are heterozygous for blood group A and B respectively. Which of the following shows all the possible results for their genetic cross? This one is D, right? Because if you multiply AO by BO, because they didn't say if it's blood group A, you could assume it's AO, because that is also blood group A. O is the recessive blood group. Right? So when you cross those two, you're going to get 25% blood group A, 25% B, 25% AB, and 25% O. All right, 54 now. As a result of mitosis, each daughter cell has C, the same number of chromosomes as the parent. Remember with mitosis is identical cells that are forming from the parent, identical daughter cells. So it'll be same number of chromosome as the parent cell. They also refer to mitosis as cloning. 56. One example of a sex-linked disease. This one is color blindness. See? 57. Variation of population is due to mutation and crossing over 1 and 2A. Right? Asexual is when you're making an identical copy. So that is a clone as well. 58. A species consists of members that D. interbreed to produce fertile offspring. And then 59 now. Which of the following descriptions is true for natural and artificial selection? This one is C. Natural is produce great biological diversity. Artificial is produce very different organisms from natural population. Last one. In which stage above can insulin be produced by the bacterium? So when you look at the last stage, part 4, that is when you have the bacteria making copies of that insulin producing gene. So 60 is D for dog. And those are the answers, 1 to 60. Any questions?
No, miss.
No, miss.
All right, so let's take a break again. We have a 15-minute break, and we will go on to the next recent one. All right, the next recent paper is the Jan version to the 2021. All right, so next 15 minutes. So 3:35, around 3:35, you can resume the meeting. Yes, Rajiv, we are going to continue. Seeing your hands up.
No, they're saying I'm back.
Oh, okay. I have some changes. I just spoke with another teacher. So here's what we're going to change. Just 2 questions in our multiple choice. Number 22, I put it in the chat. Change this now. Change the... Right. Number 22 was the question with the ATP. Let me just go back to that question. Is everyone back? Go ahead and raise your hand. Three people so far. All right. All right, so let me discuss the 2 changes to your answer sheet. Now, number 22, they say the energy released from the process above. Now, this is respiration. This is anaerobic. It's not anaerobic, aerobic respiration. Aerobic because you have oxygen reacting with glucose to produce carbon dioxide, water. So the energy that is being released from aerobic respiration is converted to ATP. Change number 22 to B. When energy is being used, then it is converted to ADP. All right, so when they say release of energy, you think it being broken down or being used, but this is it being made from respiration. All right, so it is stored in the ATP. Number 22 is B. Going back to 40, this one you have to kind of think about. All right. Now we don't know if it's near side or short side. You need a concave or divergent. We have that part all ironed out. Now when it says the light have to enter the eye, when there's a bending of light rays before entering the eye,
It could be the eyeball is too long, from the front to the back.
well, near side is when the eyeball is too short. I'm sorry, too long. Yeah, correct, too long. So you need to, the light have to bend, instead of it overly refracting as what it did here, that concave lens have to diverge it and make the light rays open back. So it have to go outwards. So instead of this kind of X-like appearance, it have to open back out. So it's supposed to be A instead. 40 is A.
Because it has to open back out to go on the retina.
To land on the retina, yeah. Right, and not supposed to overlap as it did in this figure here. It's just supposed to be a smooth line going in and focusing on the retina. All right, so those are 2 changes. Okay, we're taking a short break from the multiple choice. I will come back to the multiple choice. I found a question pertaining to growth. So when you go onto the Google Classroom, the first post, you're going to notice a simple question. It won't take you too long. Something based on growth and plants. All right, so you're going to finish off these 2. Can you all see it?
Yes, miss.
All right, so 5 minutes and then we'll correct that one. The others can put their hands down. Okay, let's start correcting that structured question. I also posted one on osmosis. So let's just go through the one with growth first. All right. So you always want to look at the marks, always reflect on how much marks it is worth. Look at the key terms like explain, state, name. So you know when they say state and name is like, you know, it's a one word kind of answer is required there. You just put the answer. When they say explain, you have to kind of go a little more in depth, include the points to get the full marks. So part B. Right, so you have a plant that was placed on its side in the dark. Figure 2.2 is a series of drawings made of the plant over 7 days as it responded to a change in its surrounding. So they have it lying to the side. Eventually, you see that the shoot bends, so it reaching the sunlight. So basically, state the stimulus to which the plant responded. What you all put there? Hello? Right, so what will be the stimulus? I know I'm not muted. You all can hear me.
The change stimulus would have been, well, light direction.
Light.
That's supposed to
Right,
be like
name the growth. Right, you could put sunlight, you could put light. Name the growth response shown by the plant.
Phototropism.
Phototropism, okay. You could also state that the shoot will bend towards the direction of the light. All right. 3. Explain the advantage to plants of the growth response shown in figure 2.2. So how is that an advantage?
It allows the light to gain. Oh yeah. It allows the light to absorb sunlight. To activate photosynthesis.
Wherever it may be grown. So if it is placed in a dark region, now remember plants is not like if you're in the forest, plants not exposed to direct sunlight, it is going to have a lot of tree cover, a lot of branches covering the plants that are below. So because there's the ability for those shoots and those parts of the meristems to grow in the direction of the sunlight, it will allow it to survive in any kind of dark region because it can bend and reach light so that it can be able to photosynthesize. And then, well, this last one here, 4 marks. Auxins control the growth responses of seedlings. Explain how auxins control the growth response of A. Thaliana, this plant here, okay, shown in figure 2.2. So how did auxins control the growth response? Put that into words for me.
this is go back on the photo, please. Miss, this is my opinion, right, Miss?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a stroke of light had touched had touched the plant, Miss, which activated it, which will cause the plant to adjust itself towards the sunlight.
Now you had to talk about auxin, eh? You had to say how auxin is respond Now, what you remember with auxins? Auxins is found at the tip of the shoot. So because the stem is bending upwards, that means the auxins would have been situated like at the back region of this tip here. So when the light would, as you could see, it coming from above because you're seeing that the stem growing upwards. So that would have stimulated the auxin, causing the auxin to cause the cells of the stem to divide by mitosis. And when it divided by mitosis, it's going to grow in length. So that is basically what you have to have for that part.
So, miss,
All right.
I was right, but I just needed more information.
More information. You see, when they say explain and they see in formats, you have to put in more.
Okay, miss.
Don't put no vague. Yeah, very good. Okay. Let's try out our osmosis and then we go back to our paper one. This one you have to think about. All right. It's posted on Google Classroom. I hope everyone is on it. Alex, I now noticed he was in the waiting room. So what you're working on will be this question posted on the Google Classroom, the osmosis question.
Okay, miss.
I'm still to be at the Google Classroom.
Okay, I'm gonna send over the link. Invitation link. Okay, I just got it. Right, so I posted it in the chat. You just click on it and you'll be added. Right, tell me if you get through it.
Members is saying chatting channel meetings is only available to team members.
Okay. Are you not seeing the chat? I will say. All right, I'll post it on WhatsApp.
To access Google Classroom, we have to have a code, right?
Basically, just show the code.
That link supposed to send you to it, you know. Let me post the link. All right, the code. For those who want the code, you just look at here. DOG KEKV. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to post it up in our WhatsApp chat.
Okay, miss.
Right, and now post the link. If you click on the link, that should send you straight to the classroom. And then it had the code method as well. The code is posted as well. Right, you're working on the first post, osmosis. When it's 4 o'clock, I'll correct it. Okay, you all thought about the question, ready to correct? I don't feel the question could come as difficult. These questions were taken from older past papers. So it tend to be very, how it's formatted, it's more, it allows you to think a little more. All right, can everyone see the question right now?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
All right, I'll help you. A student investigated the diffusion of substances through Viskin tubing and artificial membrane, which are some of the properties of a cell membrane. So if you never knew what a Viskin tubing is, it is basically a very thin layer that has pores. Right? So if you look at the Viskin tube, it's tied, it have a knot. So it's like a rubber kind of material. Very, very thin rubber, something like paraffin wax. And there's tiny pores, tiny little holes. All right, so the student made a bag of Viskin tubing as shown. So they put the elastic band, they attach it to a syringe, and they tied a knot. However, the bag filled with starch solution and placed into a test tube. So that Viskin tube, they put starch solution. Now, when I say solution, I mix it with water. So when they put that starch solution into the bag, they then place that entire syringe with the Viskin bag into now a test tube with pure water. So the student added some iodine solution to the water in the test tube, right? After 30 minutes, now this is more diffusion, but it's diffusion. Osmosis is a type of diffusion, by the way, as an example of diffusion. It's just the difference is water is being moved. Now, after 30 minutes at room temperature, the contents of the Viskin bag will stain blue-black, but the water outside remain a yellow color. Explain these results. Okay, now starch is when plants make food in the form of glucose during photosynthesis, it is going to be stored eventually as starch. That is the form in which food is stored in, starch. So starch is just many glucose molecules that form bonds with one another. So it's a large food reserve. So whenever you apply iodine, iodine is the chemical, it's a reagent or a solution to test to see if starch is present. And since starch was present in the Viskin tube, now they say after 30 minutes, the contents of the Viskin bag will stain blue-black. It will stain blue-black because starch is present in the bag, but the water outside remain a yellow color. So what they're trying to say, the contents in the Viskin bag remain in the bag. And that is simply because the amount of, perhaps, the water that was in the test tube, remember, is pure water. So nothing from the test tube entered, nothing from the Viskin tube left the Viskin tube. There was water that would have passed through the Viskin tube and from the beaker, not the beaker, the test tube itself, water from there would enter the Viskin tube because water moved from high to low, but nothing from the Viskin bag left the Viskin bag. The contents remain inside. So when you're thinking of the direction of water flow, it would have been from the test tube into the Viskin tube. So that is why the water remain that yellow color. Yellow meaning it's now iodine is normally a yellow brownish color. So there was no starch present in that test tube. The starch remained in the Viskin tube. All right. Part 2. Any questions with the results?
No, miss.
State 3 factors that influence the movement of molecules through membranes. So this could apply to movement of gas, movement of food. So 3 factors would be the concentration of the actual molecules. So the concentration of the molecules, the temperature. All right. What else could influence the movement of molecules?
You can put the size of the molecules. But yeah, size.
Size of molecules and also size of the membrane too. Size of molecule and size of the membrane itself. All right. Right, so that was just a little practice. Now I want to move over to the other 2021 paper. That is you're going into the paper 1 folder in the drive. Now this is something I will share with you all. Only you all. I have all the answers from 2000 all the way to, well, the 2021. Now is not to just look at answers and learn off. When I do share this file to you, you need to go do, I would say try to cover all the ones that are in color. So if you could start from 2013 and work your way down to 2020, as you see there, you have your answers to go back and check. So even though we stop in at this particular question paper, you have the resources so you could always go through. All right, so remember this is for you and you alone. This is not to distribute to everybody. So I will add you all to this file, but I want to complete one without you having the answers first. Right, so you go into the where is it? January 2021. All right, open that past paper in your device. You're going to answer 1 to 60. I'll have to give you 30 minutes. 30 minutes and then we'll correct. Is that clear?
Yes, miss.
All right, good luck. Okay, are you all finished with the 2021 January paper?
There's 5 more minutes.
All right. All right, we're almost to the end. Just to tie up this paper and then I'll send the remaining answers. Okay. How about the rest of you? Are you all finished? Right, we won't take time to read out every single question. I'm just going to call out the answers.
Yeah, miss.
So the ones that you get wrong, we will go through those. Hopefully there's none. All right. Can you all see the answers on the screen?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
You're looking at the purple. Okay, this purple bio Jan 2021. This column here. So you're seeing 1 to 20. When you finish 1 to 20, I'll scroll down.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, from 21 now to 40 showing. All right, so I'm going to scroll along again. I hope the others seeing. Right, the rest, 42 to 60. Excuse.
Bless you.
All right, so how you all did out of 60? Any,
Miss,
if there's a,
you scroll up, please.
up.
Right in, stocks.
If any of you getting like a question you don't understand there, you can let me know. Let me know which number.
Let's take a go back down, please.
This one have some repeats.
Yeah, miss, plenty.
You will notice this one is a repeat, but it changed the options. Number 6. Which of the following effects of climate change is the greatest threat to small islands? Number 6 was A, rising sea levels. So, you know, the previous question had rise in ocean temperature. Some people, when they see ocean, they click on, they circle that one. Yeah, so you just have to be careful. Now, I will be sending you all this sheet. Look out for that. Do as many as you can. If there's a particular question you run into that you don't understand, I'm going to leave that WhatsApp group open from now till June the 8th. All right, so you can ask questions in between. That's not a problem. We have basically come to the end. You have every resource. So when you go to the classroom, remember don't forget you have the presentation, the crash course guide. You could always go through the notes, expand on what if you want to expand on it, brainstorm and put down everything into writing. You have the scheme of work if you want to go to particular topics to practice. You have the past papers folder, both past paper 1 and 2. All right, I've spent 6.5 hours with you. I do hope it helped. I do hope that you are able to retain as much as possible for your day. You will do good. You have, you know, it's just about budgeting your time wisely at this point in time. All right, is there any questions, any comments?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for having the class, miss.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Naomi.
Good luck in exam, guys.
Same to you.
Good luck, everyone, and all the best. I do hope you have as much success and you are prepared. I know you will do well. So take care and take a rest. All right, take a rest, and you know what to do from here on. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye, miss.
Have a good one, miss.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, miss.